Hey everybody, we're going to take a look at the different interactive tools that we looked at in week 5. I've got my browser open and I'm going to go ahead and go into, again, my course area here. And let's see, let's just pick a empty class here for right now. I'm going to turn my editing on and go under my Add an Activity menu if you are in a different browser and you see only one menu. That's okay. You can click on there and that'll bring up the little pop-up. Kind of looks like a remote control, or you can pick your icon that you like. We are looking at several different things. The first one is the forum this week, and I'm going to go ahead and add that. Again, different LMSs call it different things. Some call them discussions and such. Within a forum, pretty easy to set up. You've got the name of your forum, so we'll say really intense discussion. And the description is where I'm going to put in that prompt for that forum. So if I go back here to our course, got it turned on. Oh, that's the wrong course. 15.1. All right. When you go into a course, and let's look at a forum from week 1. Get your community introductions. So this up here is what appears within the description, and you have your same WYSIWYG editor. You can put in your text, you can add images, links, you can add in an embed video just like anywhere else, and you can put that in there. One thing that I haven't talked about a lot in this course, it's more of a visual design thing, is the scalability of a browser window and how the screen adjusts on variable width. So for example, on this one, if I pull it in, you see the text is rewrapping itself around the image, but the image does not start getting smaller until you get to an area where it's the full width of the screen. So it's not a proportional until you get there. But you can see now, this might be what it looks like on a phone. Here's what it looks like on an iPad, that type of thing. So having a browser, having your LMS be able to dynamically change its width based on the device that it's in or the width of the browser window, how it displays here, is a really crucial factor. In Moodle, this is where I really like Boost, the Boost theme, because it does this quite a bit. Whereas in another course, there's other themes we've used in the past that haven't done this. I don't know if I have any of those themes active anymore. So I was going to show you one where it breaks the theme once you get too small. But all right, so that said, let's go back here, edit the forum. So I can put in my text. And our lesson talks a little bit about how to create a good prompt, good discussion prompt. We do go into that more in depth in the instructional design course, if you're going to be taking that one. By the way, we do have an instructional design section set up for this summer. So if you're interested in the instructional design course, just let me know. I can get you the dates and the link to register for that. Okay, down below some of the settings. If you want to make it so that people can attach, you can do that. That works actually really well for a lot of different forums. If you want to create a forum where people have created a project, say, and they are sharing it, like a PowerPoint or what have you, this works out really well. You'll note that the default is 500K, which is okay for a Word document. It's not very good for PowerPoint, but you can make it larger. So that's where you do that. And you can also control the number of attachments as well. I usually don't touch that, but you could if you like. Occasionally, I will go in and display the word count if I do want them to have a certain amount of words. I don't really like to be too literal, like you got to have 250 words in here or whatever. But, you know, there's sometimes where it's like, this is just an easy way to go and communicate to your audience how much effort to go in and put into something. And there are times when I don't really want my participants to put in a whole lot of effort on it. Just do some basic thinking. But if I say, I want you to put in a little bit more effort onto this, it's not that the word count is the grade, but it helps them understand how much they've written so far. All right, subscription and tracking in any forum. This is what will be set up as the, I want to say default, but this is actually what happens with the forum. Subscription means, do you receive an email once a new post is made? And there are 4 options. Optional means no, not at start, but you could say yes. Force means yes, you will get an email no matter what. Auto means yes at the start, but you could then go in and say no. And subscription says no, never. You cannot get emails for these posts at all. Optional is the default, and most people leave it at optional. But for your announcement forum, I force subscription to that so that everybody gets an email, just so I have a confirmed way of communicating with people. Tracking is either optional or off. Tracking is just when you go in to say how many posts you've read or whatever. Most people, again, leave those both optional. Discussion locking is a newer feature. You can, and this isn't really one that you would use for a course per se, but if you had a Moodle space that you're keeping open maybe all year long, maybe it was for the chess club that you're overseeing at your school, and you got a whole lot of discussions, kind of like a discussion board, you can lock a discussion after a period of inactivity so that, okay, no one's been to this forum for 3 months. It's now locked. You can't add anything more to it. If you want to add something to it, create a new thread, right? That works out really well for, again, those type of, if you're trying to go and monitor discussions and make sure you're responding to them, and you don't want to look at one anymore, you can go ahead and lock it. You can also set a threshold for how long people have before you block things being added in. The grade here, you'll note there is no points total, so this kind of throws people a little bit. You can go in and pick the grade category, and I do have grade categories in this particular course set up. If you don't have any categories set up, the only one you see is uncategorized. We'll look at the grade book here in week 6 with the management tools here. You can also set a grade to pass if you'd like, but to do that, you got to go in here and actually set the grade, and it's under ratings. This is kind of a weird factor for things. With this, ratings are basically a score that's given to forum post, and you can go in and set ratings so that you add up the sum of all the ratings. So if I make 4 posts and I get 5 points on each, it gives me 20 points. You can say whatever the maximum one is. So if I got 6 on one and 3 on the others, I get a 6 for that one, or the minimum, I would have gotten a 3 in that case. The count of the ratings, how many total ratings you got, and then your average. With the typical way people do grades for a forum is they'll typically just do maximum rating, and then they'll come in here, point total, and they'll set their points to whatever they want. Let's say it's 100 points, okay? And then if people go and make posts, I just go to one of their posts and I would give that person a 100 on it. And I'll show you an example here in a bit, okay? If instead I wanted it so that I want to get points for the initial prompt and then the replies separately, I might actually do a sum of ratings, and I can show you that in a bit too. Alright, so now if I go under the rest of these things, very similar to what we've seen before, activity completion, restrict access and such. Activity completion though, one thing I wanted to mention here with this is that you can set it up so that you require people to make so many posts. This is total, so the initial post discussion or the reply, or you could break that down and say how many discussions and how many replies they need to make. So I do like that on forums. It actually works out really well. Participants know exactly when they've completed the correct number, and I know when I can see when they have completed it as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and display that. I filled out everything correctly. And then I'm going to go back to the course here. I'm actually going to pull up a different browser. And I hope you'll be able to see this. Go into, as a student, class 1255. I mentioned before the need to go, not enrolled in this one. I mentioned before the need to have a actual test student that you like to use so that you can go in. And this is one of those places where I think it helps out tremendously. That I clicked in here. And I obviously did something wrong. That was weird. Okay, so anyway, I'm in the course. I go to the forum. And just like we've done before, click to add new discussion. And I am going to not only post it, but I'm also going to go in and do a reply. Okay, so I got new post, new reply. Now, if I go back into my forum, I can see here's the tracking. I got 2 posts that haven't been read. And again, that'll say you haven't read them even if you're subscribed and you're getting them through email. So sometimes it's like, yeah, I know I haven't read them, but I really have. Okay, I can come in here, and as I'm reading the posts, I can go in and I can rate it. I said I was out of 100, right? So, and it was maximum. So, whatever. If I did like 84 for that one, say, and 16 for the reply, that person will get an 84. That's their top score. Okay, but what if I didn't want to do that? What if I wanted to give so many points for the initial post and so many points for the reply? Well, I can do that. So what I need to go back in is edit the settings. And then go back down to ratings. And I need to do sum of the ratings. Return back to it. Now if I go in, my ratings are still the same here. But the score that that student earns is now 100 instead of 84 because it's not the maximum. So that's how teachers will use it when they're using when they're trying to grade both the initial post and the replies. They'll break that down and they'll try to figure out. They'll say, okay, in my class, the initial post is worth 10. Each reply is worth 5. And then I'm requiring 2 replies. I'm going to go in and do that. Now, what happens though if someone's being sneaky and posts multiple replies, and you go in and you end up grading them, all of their replies, and they actually earn, 5 points, 5 points, 5 points, more points than what's possibly worth? Well, that is a danger, and there's actually a different way to go in and grade those forum posts, and it's with reports, which we'll look at next week with our management tools, how to do that. All right, so that is setting up a forum. Let's go back to our course. Let's take a look at a few other pieces. We're going to set up a wiki next. And wikis are very easy to set up. Let's go in here, sample wiki. And you can make it whether it's collaborative or individual. Individual wiki is kind of counterintuitive, but set up what you want the first page to be called. So bones in the body. You can change, usually you leave the format that way, and again, we're getting into the different settings here. This one, I have um, a philosophical issue with this. This would be really nice if you could set it so that students had to contribute like 5 times to the wiki before it would check itself off. For activity completion, it doesn't do that. All you can do is, oh, if you viewed it, it's now done, it's complete. Well, that's not very helpful. So for this one, I always leave it as manually marked, if anything. Or you'd say no, nothing there at all. When you click on it to save, it'll come back and the first page will not be here. So what you have to do is then go back into it. Let me try this again. And this is not working correctly. I'm not sure. Typically it brings the page up. Oh, there's a button. There's a button down here at the bottom, create page. That's what I was looking for. Okay, this is what it normally brings up. And you have your editor. I'm going to say first page. And this is where you have to probably help people out. So you might start putting in, bones of the body, that type of thing. So you can save it. And now those are new pages. So if I click on those, it's going to click here to create a page. And then you're in. I think this is because of the theme that it looks a little different than ours in our course. But that's how you go in and you do that. You will note that you can go and see, if I go back to the first page, I'm on a secondary page here, go back to the first page, I can go in and see the history, and I can see who has contributed what. Students won't be able to see this per se, but I can go back to previous versions if I'd like. And if I had more versions, I can click, restore to this version. So that works out really well. You can also see a map, hierarchy of all the pages in there versus, it could be a list. You can also show pages that aren't linked to other pages too. So if you, then you can show how many, the contributions, so who contributed what. So if you're using something where this is going to be things that people are contributing throughout the entire course, this is a really good utility for it. I wouldn't use it for something that you're just going to do within 1 week or 1 weekend where students are just going to sit down once, because it's really not the power of this tool. It's something that can be done over a long period of time. Okay, that's setting up a wiki. Again, there's lots of things you can go through here and look at for that. Let's look at setting up a database. Setting up a database, a lot more complicated than setting up a wiki, although they kind of have a similar structure to them. All right, so this is where I'm submitting. It's like creating a form that people fill out, and then it gets added to a database that you can go in and search. So we'll say fast food restaurant items. Okay. And then I can come in here and I can say whether when someone submits an entry, if I have to approve it or not. I can change the availability. Again, much like forums, you have a rating area where you can go in and rate submissions that are completed. I didn't mention this, but you can also set it up so that participants can rate each other's. Now you might say, oh, well, I don't want to do that for grading purposes, and normally I'd say, yeah, that's correct. But you can set it up so that their grade is 0 and yet there's still ratings. And where you might use that is when you have things where, well, like for an example here, I'm going to create a database on fast food restaurant items. It could be like a rating scale, like, ooh, I like this burger better than this burger, or something like that, and get some audience participation with it. And then you can see which burgers your class likes the best. So that's where you can go in and do that. Again, all your different items here. I think activity completion, though, you can go in, and since you can grade it, you can set that to be graded, or you can also set that you have to submit so many entries. So this one acts more like a forum than the wiki does. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead. I think that is enough to create the database. Unlike the others, you have to go in and do like a second level and even a third level. So the second level is you got to set up your fields. So I'm going to set up, for this type of database, you pick the field type you'd like. These are the different items to add in. And I'm going to pick a radio button. That's the multiple choice option. And I'm going to pick restaurant. And I'm going to go down here and make that a required field. And I will do Subway. Okay, the fact that I'm struggling to mention fast food restaurants might show you something here. Burger King, that's still a restaurant. And Pancheros, sure. If you don't know what Pancheros is, move to Des Moines. Let's see, what else? Culver's, that's a good one. Okay, so I've added that field. Okay, so that's one field. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to put in a text area field. Text area actually a bigger field. You can say how wide or how long. If I wanted to do a smaller one, I can do text input. And food option, and I can make that a required field. You could also auto-link these so that the word food option right here, okay, let's say I put in hamburger or something like that as the field name. Anywhere in the course where the word hamburger comes up, it will auto-link to whatever is added in this database feature field. So if you're using this to collect information on different food items or whatever, and then someone mentions it in a lesson or a quiz, and you can set whether quizzes connect to it or not. But people can instantly get access to the information here. This is how that glossary works. A glossary is basically auto-linking those options, and it's a database here. So I'm not going to do that for this one, though. I'm going to go ahead and click Add. Just a couple more. We'll do. I'll do a checkbox this time. This is like a multiple choice, but it is more than one field. Make that required. So grains, fruits, vegetables, dairy, protein, other. You can say what that is. People can be creative. And then I could also have a picture field too. So picture of food. And I could set how big and whatever, and the upload limit. I'm not going to do that. So okay. So there's that. And now if I go in to add an entry, you're going to see I've got those fields there. I can go in. So I can say McDonald's, French fries. That is in vegetables, definitely. And then I can go in and pick a picture. I could upload it. I could drag and drop. I don't have a picture of French fries on my computer. Let's see what I do have a picture of. That's close to French fries. Well, I got pictures from our swimming pool. That's close to French fries. Okay, so I've added that in. I can put in alt text French fries. Duh. And save it. Okay. So now I've added an entry. Now, you see here it doesn't show because it says the single template is not yet defined. And I believe here the list template is not defined yet. If I go into templates, this is the third step. I've created the fields, but now I've got to create the templates so that they are shown. And So here is, so the way this works, and this is very complicated. If you want to create a database and you want to see how some are set up, I can show you some more specifics. Just let me know. But the header is what appears at the top. This is kind of like more text and description. This is where you put in the entries. And again, the list is where they're listed at the beginning. And so here they are listed out like this. And then the footer is what you put at the bottom. So I'm going to save the default of what's created. And then if I go in to view the list, it should now show up. There it is. And so that's the first option, and then the second option would show up below that and such. Okay, now you can see here the image is pretty big. I didn't limit the size of the image, so that's one issue. Also, this isn't going to display very nicely because it's this way instead of this way. It would be kind of nicer if when I created a database, if I created the fields across instead of, so row 1, row 2, row 3. So I might go back in and update that template so that they go across instead of up and down. I can also do the same thing for view single. That works actually, this works much better as a single entry because there isn't another entry below it. Okay. If I go under templates, I can do one for the list, for the single. I can do one when I add it in. These other three you don't have to worry about. The final one is to search for a template. So if I click on Add Template, for example, this was the default that was set up, which works pretty well. But you could make it more sophisticated. You could pull in other ID fields that you create over time and add those in. If you'd like, you can put in text here to explain the entries when you're adding them in. You can color them, all of those type of things. Okay. I have, for example, I think I will show you one just because we have a course, a self-paced course where participants come in and create a lesson plan. And so here is the list view for that database that we're creating. And I have some fields here. I've got the title, which of the IOA online resources they've added, the grade levels, literacy, and then click for more details. And they click on that, and then it brings up the full entry. You can see way more fields here. But you can see how I've got some as the base. I did some coloring to make it look a little better. I also separated out different areas for people as they did it. Okay, and again, this is an entry. You can see we've got lots of different entries in there. And then I can also go into the Add Entry field, and this is customized too. And again, I gave directions at the top, especially since I could time out. Please save a copy of this before submitting and such. So you can see some other fields here. You can see the text area, which has a lot of text. This is just the text input. You can pick multiple ones. It's a multi-option. Here's the checkbox. I'm not sure I have any radio buttons in this particular one. Here's where you can add an attachment instead of an image. And so that works out pretty well. You can also then search it too. And there are only some fields you can search. You can't really search, well, you can search a text area by a keyword here, but you can say I want to look at all the ones that work for kindergarten, and not just kindergarten, but that use Bookflix for kindergarten. And then I can save my search, and now it's going to bring me up below here all of the entries for that, 13 out of the database that people have used. So that is, so that's kind of a look at that. Again, in your sample database, when I go to search, it's just going to have the basic options there. I can go into my template and customize that. So again, databases are very powerful, and just like a wiki, if you want to use that for like a whole course activity, you can do some really great things with that. I wouldn't encourage anybody to use databases just for like a weekend assignment that they're doing. All right, the last item is the lesson, and I'm going to give you just a down and dirty with the lesson here because I went into a little bit more details on those. A lesson, the easiest way to think of it is as a collection of pages. We've looked at pages already, but also with some interactions that you can put into it. So I would go in, I can describe the lesson here, although that's not necessarily what's going to appear. I can make it so that they can see a progress bar as they're going through, or the menu. And let's see what other one I want to show you in here. I could make it so that the lesson actually is a slideshow, so you click to slide through it. And then you can also see that you can link in the lesson to other activities, like I'm going to go from here to the next, to that database I just created or what have you. So there's a lot of control in that. Availability, I'm going to skip, that's the same as before. Flow control means, can students go through this how they would like, or do you have a specific path for them to go through? And this is where you can set it up so that it's, think of like a choose your adventure book. So page 1 goes to page 2. Page 2 asks them a question, and then they choose, and if they choose option 1, they go to page 3. If they choose option 2, they go to page 4. That type of thing. And you can make it so that it's branched how you go through your different lesson. Okay? When people start their lesson, I like to tell them what's possible, but then I say don't worry about that right now. You can make it a grading activity, or you can make it not. A lot of people choose not to make it a grading activity. It's just informational. And then so forth, so forth. Okay, so I click Save and Display. And now I am here, and it's going to ask me, what do I want to do? Do I want to add in a page, put in a question to, a question page can branch them through different ones. I'm going to skip talking about a cluster because that's a little bit more complicated than right now. For me, I'm going to start with a page. I'll call this page 1. And here is where I talk about page 1. WYSIWYG, can add in whatever I like there. And then at the bottom it says, okay, how do you want to go to the next page, or wherever you want to go? And you can see here you've got some options. You can go to those random questions that are asked, or you can set up a question. You can take it to the end of the lesson. I'm just going to go to the next page, and I'm going to call that next page, page 2. Again, very easy to see where you can make them jump. You could have page 3, page 4, and they could pick which one they're going to. That's not even asking them a question. So I go to page 2. And now it brings me up to my page overview. I see page 1 here, and I'm going to add in a content page after that. I'm going to call that page 2. And here is page 2. And I'm going to have that jump to page 3. Note, I got to change it from this page, because if I just have it this page, it'll go right back to that one. I could go to previous page and have it go to page 1 again, but that's just cruel and unusual. I want them to actually get through this lesson, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Add another one. Be a little tricky with that one. Go to page 4 instead of page 4. And then one more, since you're getting the hang of it. And this will take me, and again, if I had set it up after I was done, it could take me straight into another activity, but here it's just going to take me back to the, actually it's going to take me to kind of an end of lesson page, and then that takes me back to the beginning of the course. Okay, so there it is. Now I can preview it. And I don't see a progress bar as a teacher, but if I go in as a student, I should see a progress bar there. Click on to page 2. Ooh, there we go. 25%. Page 3, page 4, and then I'm done. Yay, well done. All right, I love well done. Okay, so then I can go back, return to the course, and I'm there. Now I didn't check that off. I didn't, when I was editing my lesson, I did not look at the activity completion, which I wanted to do. So here you can be much more sophisticated when you go in and say certain conditions. You can make it so that they receive a grade, and again, you can have it so that there are questions that they ask and they get right or wrong, just like in a quiz. You can also make it so they have to reach the end of it, and you can make it so that they have to spend so much time on it as well. So this one is by far the most sophisticated item within all of Moodle. It's kind of like combining a quiz with all the content features into one, and you can go in and add that in, and then, you know, give them 2 pages of content, ask them a question. Did they get it right? Okay, if they did, then they get, you know, 1 out of 1, and you go on to page 3 and you ask them another question. All right, so that is a look at the different advanced content types in Moodle. We looked at the forum, wiki, database, and lesson. And you can see where they get a little bit more complicated. A lot of teachers do not use these 3. And that's okay, but I do encourage you to keep in mind when they're useful, because if you have a very powerful place where these tool types would work, it takes learning and collaboration beyond just the simple, here's, you know, here are your typical pages and links, and then maybe a forum here. This really brings in a lot more interaction with learning and content.